We're going to call this meeting to order. Rose?
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, January 18th, 2017 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
I would that we, as we move into our moment of silent meditation, remember those that are less fortunate than we are, both locally and globally. Remember those who have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers. In our thoughts and prayers, let's remember just our entire community that continues to be traumatized by this violence and poverty and issues that we have to improve on. And also, finally, I ask that our God and Creator give us the wisdom and the right information, proper information, to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the meeting of January 4th, 2017, and bills for payment on January 13th and 20th, 2017. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Are there any requests for repository sales? Are there any requests for repository sales? Hearing none, we'll go on to citizens to be heard. Nobody wrote in, right, Rose?
No.
Okay.
Nobody signed up.
Citizens to be heard. You can step up. Please introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Freda Tepfer. I live at 1738 West 23rd Street in Erie. I'm concerned about the $5 million from the state that's going towards the Harbor Place. As of yet, there have not been meetings to elicit the community's concerns related to the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan admonishes the city not to continue to destroy the bayfront. I see that this Harbor Place project is going to continue the deterioration of the bayfront because it is going to obscure the public view, limit the access to only a certain amount of provided access and at certain times. Perhaps you don't mind walking in a very narrow path with rocks on one side and as is the case by the Sheraton, where they're moving their drink tables out into the actual path. And I actually got locked behind one of the gates once because somebody closed it early. Sometimes they aren't open when they're supposed to be open. This is not reasonable public access. I'm concerned that in a situation where we've had a history of expensive properties along here claiming that they are tax exempt, and I hope that the city has done all due diligence to make sure that there is no way that this project, which is getting $5 million from the state, will then turn around and try to be tax exempt. So what I'm saying in summary about this project is, why are we continuing to deteriorate the bayfront? Public access, unobscured public access, is what is going to attract our citizens and our visitors. If we have just a bayfront all obscured by parking garages and motels, there's nothing attractive here. People will just go on to Presque Isle, spend their money out in the county rather than here in the city. And the jobs that are going to be provided will only be temporary construction jobs and low-budget service jobs. So I encourage the city not to be destroying the bayfront, and to do diligence according to the comprehensive plan, and to elicit more public input on how the bayfront and other neighborhoods are developed. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. I see you done hired some new policemen. I don't see now blackface on there. I don't know what the qualifications is to get one on there, but there's got to be somebody there that qualified. I'm still a little concerned about that young man that the police beat up. I'm not hearing nothing one way or the other. And I've often asked you, how do you train your policemen? Do you train them to go out there and beat the hell out of people? Because that's what usually happens. That's what's going on. They should be trained. If somebody break the law, you take them to jail. You don't beat the hell out of them. If you're going to beat them, of course, I'd hate for one to hit me, because go on and kill me. That's what you better do if you hit me. God in heaven know that. If you hit me, you kill me. Get it out the way. Jumping out there, that boy with his hands behind him. Boy, when God come, and he coming. He don't come when you want him, but he's always on time. Some people don't believe there's a God, but you could take my word for it. There's a God out there. And I'm so glad he's in charge. You should, I don't know. You're not teaching them something. They're not just jumping out there beating people up. They're trained for that. And that's not the way to train them. When you start finding them up in the alley dead somewhere, you start training them right. Because everybody ain't going to go for that being beat on. There's some more out there like me. Don't hit me. If I do something, take me on to jail. Don't beat me up. You better go and kill me, because you got a problem. I hate to see something like that happen. Black folks are killing up each other. These young folks are killing up each other. Ain't they killing up each other fast enough for y'all? That ain't what I come down here to talk about. I come down here to talk about all these people's going to be mayor. Is that job that lucrative? Do it pay that good? I see Shimmer want to be mayor. He gave Joe that. He was instrumental in giving Joe that $30,000. And nobody was worth no $30,000. Things were hard back then, too. And he had y'all to vote on that and give that man $30,000. He wasn't worth that $60,000 he was getting. Joe's the worthless mayor we ever had that I could remember. He's scared of black folks. He don't go into black. He don't check. He's a white man's mayor. He ain't no mayor for the black folks. When you're in that office, any office you're in, even you all up there, you're everybody's councilman. You're not just white folks' councilman. If you got prejudice, keep them hid. But his is blatant. I don't like black folks. I don't know. You might have some help, because you got Trump. Y'all done voted Trump in. I don't know how he got in, but you voted him in. And I don't know. But we got to give him a chance, though. He deserves a chance. He's your new president. But I'm not in favor of him, but I believe in giving him a chance. I'll give him a chance. I believe that he's going to try to do something. I hope some of them things he said he's going to do, he don't do. Because he sounds more like a dictator than he do a president. And we don't need no dictators. We got enough. We got enough down here. Lord bless him, though. If he get on his knees and ask God to help him, I believe he'd make a good president. But when you think that you can do anything you want to, well, thank you for your time. I know y'all glad to see me go.
Handouts, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll read it to you, Mr. Kosowski. Came just for you. My name is Joseph K. Curlett. I live in Mill Glen Apartments, Mill Creek, Erie, 16509. The issue before council tonight as I stand here is unresponsive councilman. Not everybody. The man, Mr. Casimir Kwiatkowski. Councilman Casimir Kwiatkowski has been attempted to be contacted by email, messages left on his home, cell phone, messages left in the city clerk's office, and even personal visit to City Hall. But time and time again, with the total times he was contacted since August of 2016. August, that's September, October, November, December, January 18th. Slow on the draw, Mr. Kwiatkowski. Should I say, Mr. President? Where was I? Oh, okay. But time and time again, with the total times he was contacted since August 2016, in all those various mediums, as well as 3 or 4 times a month through January 4th, or up to 20 or 30 times, with not even an acknowledgement or return response that he got the information, my contacts or anything. Oddly enough, I have attended council twice. Once in October and again in January 4th when you were made president of council, Mr. Kwiatkowski, to air my concerns about your getting back to me on police procedure employed during all internal police investigations. How much time I have left, Rose?
2:50.
Thank you. Nothing is heard from him until I contact 3 local law firms regarding Councilman Kwiatkowski's actions and deeds.
Mr. President, sorry to interrupt. Citizens to be heard. From my understanding, we cannot point to just one councilman as a person. It has to be council as a whole.
I've been very tolerant, Mr. Winarski. Thank you.
I have not seen that policy. You have it with you? I'd like to see it. I would like to read it for myself.
Mr. Curlett.
Yes, sir.
For once, stay after the meeting and talk to me.
Why?
Somebody get to our security. We'll get them out of here.
I'll leave on my own.
If you don't settle down,
Don't point at me.
goodbye. Thank you.
I'll be the same event walk.
I want to explain to the people out there, I called Mr. Curlett the other night at, thank you, Mr. Curlett. I want to explain to the people that I have contacted this gentleman about the same subject over and over. He used obnoxious... Goodbye, Mr. Curlett. He used obnoxious language in front of my wife on the phone. I will not put up with this anymore, so... Goodbye, Mr. Collette, and thank you for your input. As I said earlier, I contacted him. It's the same subject. He's bothered our chief of police to no end about a problem that he's been answered. But I don't know what to say, but that's the end of it. Is there any citizens to be heard? Thank you, Jim.
Good evening, council members. Ed Tucholsky, 1247 East 26th Street, City of Erie. I'm going to be brief. The reason I'm here tonight is to solicit some assistance in working on the park, the ball field at 13th and Lincoln for boys and girls baseball. The boys and girls baseball has been serving Erie youth for over 50 years, and on a yearly basis, just at 13th and Lincoln, we accommodate over 200 boys and girls baseball, and we need a little help maintaining the field, or we need permission so we as parents and members of the teams that play there, because we get a use permit from the city, and we really appreciate that. And in conjunction with the use permit, we basically take care of the field. We clean up a lot of the garbage, and we repair whatever is necessary to repair so the boys and girls can play baseball. But we're having problems with the field, and it was exasperated last year because the city spent a lot of money, over almost $7,000, and put a new backstop up there, and we really appreciate it. And but when they put the backstop in, the heavy equipment that came in placed a huge burden on our field. And I provided each member of council with a packet showing some of the pictures, and the pictures really don't show justice because it's worse than what the pictures can show unless you can blow it up. And I emailed everybody too, so if you got your computer you can look at it. But if at all possible, we would like permission so as parents who utilize the field, we could put some money into it, maybe provide some drainage, and do some landscaping over there. I know the city maintains parks, and I know the city is, they don't have a lot of money, they don't have a lot of people working for them anymore. So if the city can't do it, we would like permission as parents so we could actually work on the field, because according to Boys and Girls Baseball, the head of it, former Chief Steve Franklin, we have to get permission from the city before we do any work on the field, like put drainage in there. But we would like that permission or a little help from the Parks Department. Whatever you can give us, we'd appreciate it. If you have any questions, just give me a call, let me know, and I'll provide you the necessary information.
Ed, I think, is that your department, Mel?
Yes, it's Mel's Parks Department now.
Yeah. If you'd like to get together with Mel and myself, and
I'd like that very much.
yeah, we can probably see who we can talk to.
Because we have parents that have money, and myself, I put over $250 into the pitching mound, and then when they put the backstop in, the heavy equipment went over it, and it ruined it.
Yeah, you mentioned Chief Franklin. He does a nice job at the other place, but
Yeah, well, we utilize 3 different fields. The field at 21st and Bauer for our T-ball, 21st and Burst, which is the field that we own. We don't need anybody's permission to work on that field. And then we utilize the field at 13th and Lincoln. And that's for 2B baseball, kids from age 11 to 14. And just over 200 kids. And we provide, we get these kids off the street during the summer so they don't get in trouble.
call Mr. Witherspoon and myself, and we'll help you with that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Also, in conjunction with that, there's some work that needs to be done on the football field where the little gritters play, which is right behind that. And in our conversation, I want to try to tie community in and the organization in to beautify that entire area. So I'm looking forward for your call.
Oh, good evening, Council. My name is John Whaley. I live at 447 Gordon Lane in Erie. Start off with congratulations, Kaz, on being new president. Mel, apparently you'll be the vice president. You've got 11 and a half months left, total of 21 more meetings, I think. Each week, your representatives to a few meetings, some committee meetings. So maybe each individually, each person goes to 2 meetings a week. That's 100 a year. There's 7 of you. It's 700. Some of you go to more. 1,000 meetings, maybe. That could be 1,000 committee reports, 1,000 ways to bring information back. I come to a lot of council meetings. I watch the rest on TV. And I would ask you this year, committee reports are usually, I don't have anything, I want to say happy birthday to my friend, hey, I'm going to go to a meeting next week. Maybe it's a broken concept. Maybe you guys need to just change it, do something different. But if you're going to have committee reports and you're going to meetings, be a great way to tell the citizens what actually happened at the Parking Authority meeting, what actually happened at the Sewer Authority meeting, what actually happened, right? And what's going to happen. That's what they're for. So it'd be awesome if we had that. I'm asking for myself if we could do that. The other thing, the next thing would be the pilot program with St. Vincent. The news can be breathless at times and amp things up, but it sounds like there's already back patting going on. We're going to sign an agreement with St. Vincent. We're going to get some revenue. We're going to get this thing done. We're going to make it so that if we don't change it in 5 years, it'll automatically renew. The buildings that they own, the parking lots, all the things that they own that are non-taxable are going to be worth more money, more valuable in 5 years. So to sign a pilot now and say we're going to take half of what you're worth, and if nothing happens, we're going to renew that. I would like that deal at my house. I would like to sign an agreement where I pay taxes for this year, and I promise to pay those every year. And I'll pay them every year for 10 years. Don't increase my taxes. You're going to increase taxes this year, next year, whatever. It won't affect them because they've got an agreement that says, oh, we're going to pay X based on this X assessed value that should change too. So that might be something to look into. We could use the money. The other thing I thought was interesting is you're going to collect, let's take a look. 960, no, that was in 2014. Oh, you're going to collect $1 million in pilot agreements no, that was in 2015. 906, no, you're not going to collect that. That was in 2016. This year, we're going to collect, hopefully, $891,000. That's the lowest amount since 2012. There was a guy that used to work for the city whose almost sole job was pilot agreements. Something's happening. I would think that pilot would somehow magically stay the same or maybe increase. The lowest it's been since 2012. We need the money. We need the revenue. What are we missing? What expired? What changed? What did we agree to that we're making less money? Somebody should be in charge of that. Somebody should try to make more money. And the last thing is 7 new police officers, which I love. Young guys, they make a little less money, might be a little more energetic, cost us a little less, right? And the thing I notice is of the 7, 1 of them lives in the city of Erie. So you're going to say, state law, we can't do it, we can't make them live in the city, or we can't make it a requirement. That's fine. Let's think about the big picture. Why do 7 young, energetic, trained, fired up young guys choose to not live in the city of Erie? Why do they choose to live in Northeast? Why do they choose Mill Creek over Erie? So, big picture, we're trying to make Erie better. Lower crime, pave the streets, plow the streets, lower the taxes, do these things. Maybe we wouldn't have to have something that says you have to live in Erie and we'll give you more points on your test if you live in Erie. But that right there to me is incredibly telling. We've watched population drop and drop and drop. We fought for the last 2 years to get every immigrant in every apartment counted so we could magically stay at 100,000, and it didn't work. Here are people that we want living in the city of Erie. We would want guys, they happen to be all men, it'd be great if there were some women. None of them live in Erie, and I think that's sad, and hopefully, with your help in the next year, new president, it'll change. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Whaley. Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Are there any other citizens to be heard? Rose?
Mr. President.
Proceed.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Before we continue on, I just wanted to acknowledge in the audience.
I was going to ask someone about
Sister Michelle Marie's here from the House of Mercy with the students from the House of Mercy. I don't know if any of them are brave enough to come up and speak. Marguerite, one of my former students, is in the audience with them. Or if a group would like to come up and just tell us why you're here. No?
Well, we need one volunteer.
Tupac was there.
Just one, come on. Who are they asking for, Bob?
You're shy? That's okay. Well, sister, we thank you for bringing them here. Thank you for bringing them, sister. And after the meeting, if you guys stick around, we'd love to talk to you. Thank you.
If it makes you feel better, this is my second time, and my first time I didn't do it so well. So, all right. So my name is Antonio Carr. I live on 816 West 8th Street, and I didn't really prepare anything. But if I were to speak for anything, I'm going to bring up the Viagan Bridge located on East 12. It's been silent around that. All I know is that area want to tear it down. And there's a lot of citizens that doesn't want it. I suggest the last time we repurpose it, put some business up there, make it a community bridge, make it beautiful. I mean, we can do all these things, and rather than tear it down, it'll be a lot cheaper as well. You can offer business a special tax deal or whatever to locate on the bridge. I mean, the community has so many ideas. And I haven't heard anything other than it's going to be teared down and it's going to cost a lot of money. So it would be nice if you guys reached out to the people of Erie and let them know what their plans are so they can be involved. And also, Erie seems to be really behind on modern day technology. We got 11 candidates running for mayor this year, and there's no real easy way to figure out what their platform is. I mean, we have all these social medias and stuff. Why do we not have one place where all these candidates can put what they stand for in a signature that shows that they stand by these statements? And aside from that, why are these meetings not online yet? I mean, Facebook can even go live now. So why are we not live every council meeting? And I mean, you got to reach out to the people of Erie if you want them to be a community again. Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Are there
President.
any other citizens to be heard? I thought we had them all.
Mr. President, real quick, just I know we don't often respond with citizens, but for a point of clarity, our our meetings are live on the government channel now, and they're replayed pretty regularly. So if you check out the website, it'll give the schedule. Anyone who missed a meeting or missed a portion or needed to see something again, they're also replayed. So it's being live now, played, and then. But it's not, again, not utilizing social media to go live, but it is live and is replayed on our on the website as well. And you can click on and go on our website and watch them as well, YouTube.
It's on computers.
Yes, sir.
All right, ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15976, official ordinance number 1, 2017. An ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Erie, Pennsylvania. By Mr. Mursky, seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski. The council file ordinance bill number 15976, now known as official file ordinance number 1 of 2017, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. City Council passed official file ordinance number 1, 2017, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 15977, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $250,000 from unappropriated revenue received from a Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Act 101 Section 902 Municipal Recycling Program Grant and providing for the expenditure thereof. By Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Winarski, the council file ordinance number 15977, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15977 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council File 15978, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $8,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue from Star Athletic Club for the Bureau of Fire for the City of Erie. By Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Winarski, the Council File ordinance number 15978, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 15987 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading.
Excuse me.
Okay, very good. Okay, that'll take us into new business. Mr. President?
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. I'd like to make a motion to move the balance of the agenda.
Okay, do we have a second on...
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any separations?
Yes, Mr. President. Number 7.
Okay, number
in
7?
the new business.
Under new business? Okay. Are there any other separations? No other separations?
All right, moving the balance of the agenda. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. Resolution number 7 by Mr. Mursky, second by Mr. Witherspoon, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the proper city official is authorized to execute a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with St. Vincent Health Center doing business as St. Vincent Hospital. The agreement provides for a 5-year term commencing January 1st, 2017 and concluding December 31st, 2021. Also, the agreement provides for automatic renewal at the expiration of the term unless timely notice is given by either party in the agreement's final term. The terms of the agreement further commit St. Vincent to a pilot based on 50% of the assessed value of the scheduled tax-exempt properties. Discussion?
Okay, Mr. Brennan, do you want to address
Yes,
it?
Mr. President. Yes. Since the architecture firm I work for does design work for St. Vincent's Hospital, I need to abstain from voting on this resolution to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Okay, we acknowledge that. Mr. Mursky?
Mr. President, just to clarify, there was a comment from one of the citizens that the 50% will be in perpetuity, but I do want to qualify that with it's the assessed value of the scheduled tax-exempt property. So as the taxes go up, it's 50% of that assessed value with the prorated tax rate.
Are there any other discussion?
Yeah, and Mr. President.
Yes, Mr.
I appreciate Mr. Mursky for bringing that clarity. That was a question that I got the answer to as well. So that 50% stays 50%, but they increase the price or the cost or the amount may increase as property is appropriately increased. But also, I think it's important to understand this is a pilot, and I think sometimes because we as the city and citizens are very concerned about revenue coming into the city, having appropriate amounts of revenue coming into the city, the phrase or the term or the acronym pilot is payment in lieu of taxes, and technically they don't have to give us anything, but in an effort to be I'll say it this way, a good neighbor, a good citizen of the city from a business perspective. And if I take the gloves off a little bit and say, nobody wants to fight to see if these hospitals or some of these groups are technically tax exempt or nonprofit, or should be tax exempt in nonprofit status. But the compromise historically has been that 50%, which again, they don't have to do. So I think sometimes we put it in context that five, whatever it's going to be, 500,000, whatever it might be, is something that we don't have to technically have. And if we were to fight it, and this has been a conversation because I had on council for 11 years, like, wait a minute, let's fight this because they got a lot of money, they building a lot of stuff. But if we were to lose that argument or to lose that case, then they can absolutely in good conscience and probably would say, we're not giving you anything. And so I think to put it in a little more context, this is a pilot payment in lieu of taxes where they technically don't have to give us anything by law. That's out of our hands. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Bernarski, you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Carley. It's actually for Mr. Carley. If they were to expand or get additional properties, this isn't locked in for 5 years. It's 50% in lieu of taxes for, just say they expand farther and buy another city block or expand in...
The schedule that I appended to the agreement which you had was for the exempt properties. So they may very well expand, but some of those properties will not be exempt, so they're going to be on the tax rolls.
And some may, so this number, and there again...
Now, if they would say to put an expansion or an addition to their already existing main hospital project, that would be assessable again at 50% of the assessed value.
Which goes every year, even though this is a 5-year agreement, even if they were expand, just say in 3 years, they've added on something that we could get additional revenues from, we would...
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, very good.
Any property, exempt or non-exempt, always gets
a yearly
value on the
a yearly assessed value.
Correct.
Just so everybody knows out there.
And I don't know that there's going to be a base year assessment in the next several years, probably not within the next 5 years. So they'll have this assessed value in all likelihood for the next 5 years. But if a taxing body increases their millage, you get more money.
Very good. Thank you for that interpretation. Thank you.
Mr. President. Thank you, sir. The hitchhike on that question and answer, if you add 3 years from now an addition on, does that new addition pick up 5 years, or it falls under that current 5 years?
My interpretation would be it would go for the unexpired term of this agreement.
Okay.
This agreement now contains what's called an evergreen clause, which means it automatically renews. So unless the taxing entities and the property owners say for some reason don't want it to continue with the agreement, they got to give us notice by March 1st of the last year, and then we'll do whatever we need to do. But to your question, yes, it'll be as soon as it's added to the tax rolls, it's a taxable. At least a portion of it is taxable. It's exempt.
And I'd like to say that while people come up to me all the time and say 50% and they're not happy, but I'm never happy either. Let me tell you, I'd love to have 75. I'd like to have all 100 of it. But in my travels with the League of Cities and many of the conferences and talking with fellow controllers and councilmen and mayors, our 50% is probably one of the better ones in the state. When you consider Pittsburgh, who deals with one of the same hospitals we do, gets, I think, roughly 35%. We're doing pretty good. We negotiate. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But you know what? Like it was brought up by Mr. Jones, they don't have to give us a dime. I would tell the taxpayers to do what I do. I have been hammering my two legislators Mr. Harkins, and Mr. Fabrizio, and the state senator. Just hammer them every time you see them. Tell them your concerns. When they get the message, and they'll tell you that this is an issue that all over the Commonwealth, that there are more suburban and rural entities than there are cities. So they're not affected the same way the city core cities are, like Reading and York. So you need to pressure these people to, tell them your concerns, just like I do every time I see them, because the only way this is going to get any better is it's got to come out of Harrisburg. It's a state law, and until that changes, the interpretation, we're going to have much of the same for the next few years. So, don't be afraid to contact your legislators. They may not answer you, but at least write them a letter, email them, whatever you can. We need the same help you do. The more people hammering them, the sooner this problem hopefully gets solved. Thank you. Rose?
All right, roll call. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, abstains.
Abstain.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. That'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Okay, we can move on to committee reports. We'll start with Mr. Witherspoon today. What, you weren't ready?
No, I'm always ready.
He was born ready, right?
Amen. Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple items to report here. I attended the Erie Downtown Partnership Board meeting today. I had noted to Council earlier that they'd like to schedule a study session with Council to update us on a few items. One is a charter renewal, since their charter expires 2019, but they're looking at extending it for 10 years. So they're going to tell us kind of why they want to do renewal that now. And then also the Erie Downtown Partnership Master Plan. They'd like to talk about us to make sure we see if we have any questions about the plan, but then possibly have a resolution to approve the Erie Downtown Partnership Master Plan. Other initiatives that we talked about today is they're going to have round 3 of the security camera funding. They've been successful in working with property owners to get cameras installed over the years, and they're going to continue to find more funding for that. They also talked about possible future design guidelines for downtown, possibly voluntary at first, and then possibly incorporate into a zoning regulation after the education process goes through, and we try to encourage redevelopment, encourage renovation. Those are all positive things. And then more facade improvement funding. They're going to be getting some more funding for that to help businesses. And then the last thing is for Downtown Partnership is on May 10th, their annual spring meeting is going to take place. I also attended the Erie Comprehensive Plan. There was a Phase 1 action team meeting today. As I reported at our last meeting, the Phase 1 action plan is under development for the Central Core first. That's the Phase 1, and Phase 2 will be the action plans for the neighborhoods. Just like the Downtown Partnership, the team wanted to meet with council and talk about some of the discussions, some of the priorities that they're working with. Following the study session, there's going to be a public presentation. And then again, the Phase 2 action plan will commence following that. That'll be the focus, and focus on the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Mr. Mursky?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things to report. I wanted to thank Mrs. Arrington and her Mothers Against Teen Violence. I attended the talent show for Matt V., and it was a very positive event, a lot of young talent in the community, and a huge crowd. Everybody got together, and it was really an impressive show. A lot of people from the various schools that I taught at, and there was also a really nice dance group from Mr. Horton's program, and they were really, really impressive. So thank you for putting on that talent show, Mrs. Arrington, and your staff from Mothers Against Teen Violence. I also attended the Martin Luther King dinner, and I want to congratulate all the award winners from that and the Martin Luther King March. We have to remember that, the cause of peace and justice isn't just a one-day event, but it's something that we must renew in ourselves daily in order for the dream of Dr. King to truly live. In our voting today, and we voted in the package to close a paper street, and a paper street is a street that's on the books, but it was never developed. And we did that so that Great Lakes Metal could expand. In the caucus room during our meeting, they shared with us that they want to expand their facilities. Just currently, from this year, they've expanded from 24 to 30 employees, creating 6 manufacturing jobs, and they want further expansion. So that was part of the development that we advocated for today and voted to close that street so that they can expand. And I also wanted to let the citizens know that we did hire these new police officers. I wanted to congratulate all of them, but in particular, I wanted to give my special congratulations to Officer Fatika. He was one of the school district officers at East High School, and he's the only one of the group that did not serve in the military, so he didn't get the military points. So his test scores were so high that even without the military points, he made the grade. So we want to thank him for that, and he does have experience in our community, so I'm really excited. EPD is getting a fine gentleman in Mr. Fatika. And as liaison to the Neighborhood Watch, I attended the Snoops Neighborhood Watch and the Academy Neighborhood Watch. With the Snoops, they're having a lot of trouble with the alleys, people dumping garbage in that 13th and 14th Street corridor by St. Stan's. And the Academy Watch, their big thing right now is to use their neighborhood watch to align with the comprehensive plan as best they can, because they're in that 28th Street corridor, which is addressed in the plan. And so they're working with the businesses on Parade Street and on that 28th Street corridor for ways that they can enhance that neighborhood. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Mercy. Mr. Winarski.
Oh, lucky me. Good evening once again, everybody. Once again, I apologize for interrupting as citizens be heard. There's nothing more than this council do appreciate when people have concerns or thoughts that we are interested in, but there is rules of council not to particularly single out a single council person, to single out council as a body. And it got a little not council-like or not council rule-like, so unfortunately tonight's little incident had to be taken care of. So please, we do enjoy, I don't know, always enjoy, but we do entertain any citizens to be heard. You're more than welcome, but please be respectable to the office and the council as a whole. With that being said, I'd like to thank the Star Athletic Club for once again donating some small games of chance monies to the Erie Fire Department, the tune of $8,000, which is great. I belong to a few clubs myself, maybe not athletic clubs, but it's nice they can give some of their monies, which is required by the state, to donate to non-charitable places, and us being one of them, I encourage any other city or clubs in the area to do the same. We will put it to good use. Other than that, I know I did second Mel Witherspoon to be Vice President of Council. That we were going to table it. I thought about tabling it, but
I need more time to think about it.
but it was one of those we just had to get through and move on. And with that, thank you and good evening.
That's funny.
Thank you, Mr. Winarski. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things very quickly, relatively quickly. going to be talking to some of the staff in the Economic and Community Development Office just around making sure we don't have some of the challenges that we had last year in relation to CDBG and the process, and any of the concerns that were raised last year around the process, around a diversity of community involvement in the selection process, those types of things. I think we've got some historic models of things, of processes that worked well, had some council members who were involved in the vetting and selecting process, had different community members involved in that process. I think would help to kind of eliminate, or at least, I'll say eliminate, but maybe help kind of put to rest some of the concerns, legitimate concerns that certain citizens had that this was kind of a cherry-picked process. And so the more people we have included in the conversation from a diversity of perspectives, I think would add value to that. So we're going to work on that. Those applications are out for CDBG funds for organizations to put those requests in, and so we definitely look forward to that process and doing hopefully some new and unique things with those funds this year. We also are going to have a study session, excuse me, with the Zoning Hearing Board in the very near future. I know we have a study session scheduled next Thursday, correct? Next Thursday, thank you. With two other groups from the community, but also the Zoning Hearing Board will be shortly after that, just kind of keeping or catching council up on some process things. There were some concerns that a couple members had around bylaws and some different things, just to kind of clean house in that space and with that group. And it's a very important 5 people who serve our community as volunteers on that Zoning Hearing Board. I believe it's 5 people. And so they want to make sure that they're doing it at the highest level of effectiveness possible. So one of the big things that we talked about, and we've passed some resolutions on in relation to the landlord ordinance and the importance of it and the necessity of continuing that and fine-tuning the process. A part of that process is awarding a contract to a provider who was going to do the assessments of the rental properties and the inspection of the rental properties for us. That contract is up or coming to a close here soon, and we want to be involved in the process as much as possible. Of course, with every contract, I get it. Ideally, it should be one room, one space, everything funnels through, and I hope that we can move toward that. But for some of these larger issues and larger contracts and larger, more city and broad ranging, we really want to be a part of that contract process. Now, I don't know if we need to be a part of what's in the RFP that goes out. I don't know. Maybe some things we do, but if we could have a heads up on council, again, just, okay, hey, in like 2 weeks we want to send this out. Do you have any input? Or do you have anything that we should, or do you want us to put in because you're dealing directly with the citizens around that issue? That would be greatly appreciated as much as possible. I understand it doesn't always happen, but as much as possible, we'd love to be able to do that. And we are actually having a study session with that group, and we'll be able to articulate some of our concerns with that group as well. But that's, again, a different issue. So the contract piece is really important. I'm not I normally don't do this, but sometimes, you know how you hear something and it just doesn't sit well with you. And we had a citizen earlier, and I appreciate and have a great love for the First Amendment, and we're allowed to say what we want on a certain level. But I think freedom of speech does not free us from responsible speech, in my opinion. And I think sometimes that's why we have rules of counsel. You can't just attack and bash people and those types of things. And I'm not going to sit here and be respectfully a defender of Mayor Sennett, and because you can dislike policies and approaches and all of that, but as a person who's worked very closely with him over the last 12 years, I don't think that's a fair statement to make a blanket statement he doesn't like black people. As a young black man, and I am still young, and I'm still very much black, a black man. He's a personal and professional friend of mine that has been there for me in challenging times and some very winning times in my life. Now, again, we don't always agree. Like we've had, I've never fought with him. He's like a third-degree black belt or something, so I'm not going to fight with him. But we've disagreed. But that doesn't mean we're not personable. He stood with me and others on the corners in our community, holding signs and talking, and so he's done that. Has he done it enough? I think he could do it more. Nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to have your opinion, but certain things I just don't think is okay to say. And for me, there's certain things you don't want to get tagged with. In this climate that we're living in today, a racist is not one of them, in my opinion. Unless you own it. And if that's you, that's you. But in my experience with our mayor, that has not been the case. And so that didn't sit well with me, just to say that and then leave. And I didn't like that. Because I wouldn't want somebody to say that about me. There's certain things I wouldn't want people to say about me just because they don't like me or don't like my policy. So that's that. Finally, I did attend the Martin Luther King Day March as well, as many of my colleagues did, and different ceremonies and events throughout the community over the last several days. And, you know, the thing about Dr. King, and I don't want to soapbox it or preach about it, but Dr. King, we talk a lot about his dream, and it is appropriate to talk about his dream. But if you listen to some of the words of Dr. King before he was taken out of this physical world, his message became much more stern about the importance of not dreaming, but waking up. Because when you're dreaming, you can just say, oh, I was dreaming. You know, you don't hold kids accountable for talking in their sleep or sleepwalking. But when you wake up, we have to become more conscious. And Dr. King stopped dreaming before he died and started doing things and started saying things and started questioning wars that they felt was inappropriate and questioning why poor people couldn't have the resources in the richest country in the world. And those are the things that we have to wake up to. And so the violence in our community, we have to stop dreaming that things are going to get better and wake up to doing something about it. And that doesn't just happen from this seat or these seats or the fifth floor, but it happens in every nook, every cranny, as Dr. King would say, every town and every hamlet, every place that people are, we are responsible to make that the best place possible. And so let's wake up. The march is symbolic, but the work is real. The dream is over, and we have to wake up and do the work. So that's my report for today, Mr. President. Thank you.
Amen.
Mrs. Arrington?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have a committee report, but I have a few things that I want to say. Firstly, I went to the March too, and just to see the diversity out there was amazing. A lot of people, good time. And secondly, I want to talk about the violence because, you know, this is near and dear to my heart. The young man that was just shot and killed the other day was my husband's first cousin. So we've been over there dealing with that with the family. And the sad thing about it, within the last 10 years, my family has lost 4 young men to gun violence. Young men. Even one was younger than my son. My son was 19. Pooh was 17. And it's sad. It's really sad. We're not even safe to even go to a gas station and get gas without the Wild Wild West breaking out. But it's not a one-person issue. It's a community issue. We have a lot of people that think because they live in Mill Creek, Harbor Creek, Fairview, that it won't touch them. You never know. You don't want to be that parent that get a phone call saying that your child is deceased. And over what? It's senseless. It has to stop. Our community has to come together. We need to educate and raise awareness to what's going on in our community. And then you have the young people that's standing right there that don't want to tell what happened. Really? People need to think about, what if this was my relative? Wouldn't I want somebody to go tell what happened to my relative? These young people need to put these guns down and pick up a Bible. If a lot of these young people was more vested in church, we wouldn't have the Wild Wild West going on out there in our community. But at the end of the day, regardless how bad it is, We have to continue to pray, and we have to continue to do the work to make our community a better place, to bring back the love and peace and hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Arrington. I tell you the truth, I don't know how you do it. My heart goes out to you. Jimmy kind of said it, and to paraphrase him, and I mean Mr. Jones, the contract procedure, I do hope that the next year that we make better use of the liaison system, the administration and council. I think it'll work a lot easier for all of us, and council does want to get involved in some of the, not micromanaging, but we get a lot of feedback from citizens. I know some people think it's, it's always it's not always the complainers. When you get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 complaints and there's a little smoke, there's fire. Okay, it may not. I mean, some people might have personal axes to grind, but this issue, I was really concerned that we wanted to be more involved in the BIU process. It didn't happen the way I wanted it to, and I think we can eliminate a lot of the problems and distractions we've had over the last few years. So please, I beg you to use our liaison system. I'm going to be demanding it more and more. I'm going to get in touch with all of you about study sessions, about scheduling. We have a lot of important ones, a lot of business. I agree that there's a lot of stuff on the back burner that this council has been trying to dig out and start moving forward. And I think we got a very productive council, and now's the time to move them. I want to thank Mr. Witherspoon for accepting the VP.
You're welcome, sir.
It's a pleasure to serve with Mel. He and I go back a few years. I kind of owed you for something. I won't talk to him. No, he'll be a great VP, and unlike the one that served for Roosevelt and Truman, you will be busy. Okay, you won't be forgotten. I want to thank Mr. Tucholsky for coming here today. We have a lot of citizens out there which approach various council members about, taking a lot of issues in hand, like adopting parks, and I think it's great. He mentioned Mr. Franklin, our ex-chief, who's done a great job with Little League fields. And I think anytime we have citizens that want to step forward, I'd be glad to work with you, and hopefully we can set you up with the right people and with the administration that I think, we need, if you read, everybody talks about this great report that Mr. Buki wrote. Well, in that report he talked about interaction between the private sector and citizens and government, and I think this is an example. If you can help us, and it fits the plans and it's good, I think we should approach it. So Ed, I will be contacting you, and I hope you contact us. I had a talk today with the Economic Development Department. I was kind of surprised when a comment was made that with all the negative news we've had, and this kind of segues in with what Bobby said, the number of jobs that left Erie, you count them up, and it was tremendous. But it was pointed out that the number of jobs that have come into Erie, they haven't truly replaced those lost ones, but we have gained a lot of jobs in Erie over the last few years through the hard work of economic development by working with Smith's Provisions and various companies like we had today with the finishing company came in here, and with the projects coming up with Velocity Net and with Erie Insurance and Hammett Hospital expanding. There's been a lot of jobs coming in here, and I think we haven't really beat our drum that much of that, but it's that's the things we have to do. But creating those jobs is nice, but the next phase is we got to somehow find a way to keep those workers in the city to live here, so that we get the full economic benefit of that. That's our next mission. And a lady brought up earlier about the Scott project, and I share the concern of citizens too, but Mr. Scott will pay taxes. That was pointed out. And the project that's down there now is, they talk about the comprehensive plan, but you also have a downtown plan, you have a county plan, you have many plans out there. The trouble is going to be coordinating all these plans together and seeing which one, we have to be concerned which one benefits us. And right now, the Bayfront, I don't think it's going to be destroyed, and we have people like Mr. Kissel that I can guarantee will make sure we don't overextend our bounds too much. but we have to have some development down there, and I think if we can expand our tax base in some ways is beneficial to everybody, then we have to do that. We can't control the fact that the manufacturing jobs left here and that, we got more service jobs, but we have to do a better job of creating more of the manufacturing jobs, which I was surprised that when I talked to economic development is happening on a smaller scale. We're not seeing the big companies come in, we're seeing a lot of smaller ones. And finally, I'd like to apologize. I let a couple people talk a little longer than I should have, and I'm learning my job as everybody else does. In reference to the gentleman that took me to task, he's been calling me for about 6 months about the same subject over and over and over again. He's tied up our chief of police over and over and over again. He wants information on something that council doesn't have, the mayor doesn't have, and either does the chief of police. And we've worked with this gentleman, and he calls me all hours of the day. So the other day, I'll be truthful, I called him at 11 o'clock. I decided if he wanted to call me late, I'll call him late. So I called him at 11. And it was a good conversation up until, and I had it on speaker, until my wife heard a couple words that I haven't used since my Army days. And I'll be truthful, I'm not putting up with that, and I don't care. I'm a person like everybody else, and I'm not answering the same comment over and over and over again. And I've offered to meet with this gentleman, and you see, he's not around after the meeting. I am around, but he's not, so I don't want to let it, that's the end of this conversation about this gentleman, and I would do a better job in controlling the bad dialogue. Mrs. Stankiewicz?
I have no report this week.
Thank you. Mrs. Zubeck?
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations, Mr. Witherspoon, on your appointment as Vice President of Council. Looking forward to, of course, working with you. Reminding everyone that we have a press conference tomorrow, a swearing-in ceremony that will be held here in Bagnoni Chambers at 10:30. Thank you for approving the 7 police officers that will be joining the accompaniment of the Erie Police Department. I believe these are positions due to retirements and some shifting around, so some nice young blood that we're going to get out on the streets. It certainly is important that we get those positions filled and get these guys trained. So they'll be here with their families tomorrow, getting their badges and taking the oath of office, and certainly everyone is welcome to attend. Thank you.
Mr. Carter, you had a comment?
Mr. Witherspoon is going to give my report.
Basically, legally, according to my law firm, he has no report.
You forgot the key word, in my opinion. And with that, we'll adjourn.
City Council adjourns at 8:44 p.m. Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones.